Welcome to another tip of the day brought to you by AccessLearningZone.com. I'm your instructor, Richard Rost. In today's tip, I'm going to show you how to set up columns in your Microsoft Access reports. This tip covers Microsoft Access 2010. Access 2007 is very similar, so if you're using Access 2007, you should be able to follow along just fine. If you're using Access 2003, I have tutorials on my website that cover using columns in reports. Just go to AccessLearningZone.com and type columns into the search box. Here I've set up a basic customer table. I've got a customer ID, which is my auto number, the first name, last name, and phone number of my customer, and of course you can use whatever fields you want. Now let's create a basic report off of this table. I'll click on Create. Then come over here to Report Design. This is a blank report in our Report Designer. The first thing that I want to do is set up a record source for this report. Where am I getting my records from? So come right here, double click on this little box where the ruler bars meet. That opens up the property sheet for this report. The first property is record source. Drop this down and pick Customer T. It's the only table in my database. You may have more. Now I can go ahead and close the property sheet. Why did I do that? Well, because now Access knows that this report is based on the customer table, and that's where the data will come from. Now I can click on Add Existing Fields. My field list shows up, and I can see the fields that are in the customer table. I'm going to pick first name, hold the Shift key down on your keyboard, and then click on phone number. That will select all three of those fields. Now, with them selected, I can click and drag any one of them and drop them in the report. You can drag them over one at a time if you want to. Now I can close the field list. Now I want to shrink up this report so it's not wasting any extra space. There's a lot of empty space in here. So come down here, find the top of this page footer bar right there. See how I have a two-way arrow? Click and drag this all the way up as far as you can. Keep going right about there. That looks good. Same thing applies with the right-hand side. We're going to be making columns, so I'm going to drag that all the way over there. So this is all the space that this one particular report is going to take up. Now, let's save this report. I'll click on the floppy disk icon right there, and I'll say Save as Customer R, Customer Report, and hit OK. Now I've got my customer report all set right here. Now, let's take a look at this report in Print Preview. So come over here, find the View button, drop this down, and pick Print Preview. This is what it's going to look like when you print it out. Notice I haven't turned on my columns yet. Okay? See that? I've got just one column of records. That's okay. Close the Print Preview. That'll put us back in Design View. Now up top here, under the Report Design Tools section, click on Page Setup. Well, the first thing you want to do is set up your margins. So you can drop this down. I'm going to keep with the narrow margins. That gives me a 1/4 inch margin all the way around the page. If you want to change that, this is where you do it. I'm fine with 1/4 inch margins. Now, if I'm dealing with an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and I subtract a 1/4 inch margin from each side, so I'm going to say minus 0.5. That means I've got 8 inches of usable space for the report. Now, if I want 3 columns on the page, I'll divide that by 3. And that means that each column can be just under 2.66 inches. So keep that in mind, 2.66 inches. And I'm going to take this calculator and slide it over to the side here. So I'll remember that for later. So looking at the width here, notice the ruler bar. There's 1 inch, there's 2 inches. I want to get this under 2.6, which is somewhere around here. So what I'm going to do is slide all my controls over. I'm going to select all my controls, slide them over like this. Maybe grab these guys and resize them a little bit because we don't need all that space there. Try to get this down under 2.6. Now, grab this edge and bring it right down here. Maybe go to about just about 2.5. That should be perfect. 2.75 is out here somewhere, so that should work. You don't want this to be wider than the maximum width that the column can be. All right, so that's how wide my record's going to be. Maybe even shrink these up a little bit more. I spend way too much time on form and report design. I'm very picky when it comes to the way things look. Okay, so this is all set. Now let's turn the columns on. Here's the columns button right there. Again, under Page Setup. Click on that. This brings up the Page Setup dialog box. Here's where you can specify the number of columns that you want. It's currently set to 1. Let's change that to 3. There are some additional options in here. Do you want extra spacing between the rows vertically? Do you want extra spacing between the columns? That's an option. You can manually set the column size here, or just use same as detail, which is what we did back here. This is the detail section, and it's got the width right there as 2.54, which is perfect because we know we can go up to 2.6. You can resize that manually if you want, if your columns are too narrow or too wide. And there's options down here. Do you want the records to go down and across, or then across then down? Again, don't worry too much about this. Hit OK. Now nothing appears to change right here. You're still in design mode. That's OK. Come back up here. Go back to Design. Flip over to Print Preview. Now I'm getting this error message that says there's not enough horizontal space on the page for the number of columns. That means we're too wide. Somehow our columns are too wide. That's OK. Hit OK for now. There's our columns, and yeah, you can see it's a little bit too wide still. That's okay. We can easily go back in and fix it. Sometimes the math isn't perfect. Maybe we need to just shrink this up just a little bit like that. Let's go back into Print Preview, and there we go. Perfect. All right. Sometimes figuring out exactly isn't perfect, so we figured out 2.6. Well, sometimes Access wants a little bit more space than that. But there we go. That's how you turn the columns on. We've now got records going 3 across, and in this particular case 3 down, but if you had more, they would of course fill up the page. The key is first, set up your report, set up your margins, figure out how wide each record can be, and then turn your columns on. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. For lots more free tips just like this one, be sure to visit my website at accesslearningzone.com. I love to read your feedback on my videos. Feel free to post your comments in the section below, and also be sure to share any thoughts you have for future tip videos. If you have a problem you need help with, let me know about it. Maybe I'll turn it into a video. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel at youtube.com/599cd. You can subscribe to my blog at accesslearningzone.com/blog. Become a fan of my Facebook page, accesslearningzone.com, and of course, follow me on Twitter at 599cd.